When Harri Met Sally, a photography podcast, would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners of the lands and waters in which we are recording this podcast on today. As people who work with artists seeking meaning and knowledge through storytelling, we recognise the first peoples of this nation have been doing so for over 60,000 years. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging across Australia. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land.
And the When Harri Met Sally podcast would be nothing without our fabulous sponsors, would it, Harri?
Absolutely.
So first of all, we'd love to welcome a new sponsor on board for this year, which is the RACV. Thank you so much for being a wonderful sponsor, and we're really excited about having you on for Season 3.
And we'd like to welcome back and thank Nikon Australia, who are always a part of supporting the creative industries in Australia. Ted's Cameras, thank you so much for joining us again. And A&L Artistic Framers, who are just fabulous people to work with.
And last but not least, Col Arts. Thank you for the pod suites. This is our third year in here. We have added ferns and all sorts of wonderful things into the pod suite room this year. And it's without you, we wouldn't have a podcast really, would we?
We certainly wouldn't, and we hope you enjoy the episode.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
So it's a very exciting episode of When Harri Met Sally today.
Do you know what I love about these episodes is when we get to talk to really old friends as well.
I know. It's
I
wonderful.
know.
We have not only an old friend that we have both worked with independently, but who helped us actually start up When Harri Met Sally.
Well, we actually rang and said, how do you do a podcast? Do you know anything about it? Yes.
So welcome, Libby Jeffrey. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you, lovely ladies. It is always a pleasure to see you and to have been involved in When Harri Met Sally. So I'm delighted.
You were our first port of call, Lib. We just thought, who would know something about this?
Yeah.
Well, Sal, it's been part of my journey, has always been involved in multimedia of all kinds from the days of CD-ROM.
Wow.
And Director. I don't know if people remember Director.
I don't.
Mid-90s, early 90s. Anyway, yes, so if I didn't know it, I would learn things anyway.
Yeah, you were really great. It was fantastic, Lib. So for those of you that don't know Libby, which would be very odd because Libby's been such a huge part of our industry for such a long time, Libby, with her partner Jeff, ran Momento Pro. And so today we're going to be talking about all things Libby and photography and Momento Pro, and maybe take away with the first question,
Yeah,
Harri.
I would love to get started just in the guts of it, really, and just it has publishing been always something that you've been passionate about, or is it? And you said that you've been doing got lots of strings to your bow, but is publishing something that you really found a love for early on?
Totally, Harri, and it's fascinating when people ask you questions like this because sometimes you don't realise where your focus is going until you look back and go, things were always leading up to this moment. So as I said, in the heady days of CD-ROM, so in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, I was at university studying digital media and communications right at the time when it was happening. And my love or my particular interest was actually in things like e-learning and, publishing content for learning digitally. I also worked with music content. So it was the new form of publishing at the time. And I did that for a few years. It's actually also where I met Jeff and our co-founder, James Whitwell. So we were all publishing digital content of different kinds, whether it was for music or entertainment or learning.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting after that, one of my next steps, I forget too, after that I went to work for Aussie Mail and this is in the early days of the internet, and I had this fantastic job. My title was Web Wonders producer.
Web Wonders! Oh my God, that's amazing.
Wonder Woman.
It was fantastic. And
what an
my
amazing
job,
time for you to be a part of all that, Lib.
It was, and it was fascinating to be studying at the same time that the industry was being created. So I was basically ahead of everybody else.
I love that you've said it was essentially it was content creation, and that's such a word we use now for social media and internet and Instagram. But that none of that was kind of around then. So, but it was still happening. It was still this content creation,
and not just content creation. You've reminded me of the tagline that I kind of grew up with through digital media, which is content is king.
Wow.
And, it was actually, I'd like to at this point acknowledge our Prime Minister, Paul Keating, of the time in 1994. With thanks to Paul Keating, he introduced the Creative Nation policy, which was the first time multimedia companies worked with publishing institutions.
Oh, wow.
So we worked with Triple J, of cultural institutions that also published content. And the idea was they were bringing together these brand new businesses that were about digital media production, CD-ROM specifically, with businesses that had all the content and the archives. And that included, in our case, Triple J and the ABC, the Powerhouse Museum, Mushroom Records and Mushroom Pictures. And it was this amazing combination of bringing all this audio, video, imagery together into I suppose you could call it edutainment, or a combination of entertainment and information. Wow. And that was still one of the best projects I've ever worked on.
And
fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. Wow. And just as you said, being ahead of the time. I mean, the teachers were probably learning at the same time as the students were,
Oh, absolutely. And I was very lucky because I learnt very early in my career, and being here talking to you is just another perfect example of this manifesting later in life. Very early in my career, I learnt that networking was the most important and valuable thing I could do. So I met some incredible people who are still a part of my world. They introduced me to an industry, the Industry Association, which at the time was called AMIA, the Australian Interactive Multimedia Industry Association, and I volunteered with them from when I was 18 years old. So I was at uni studying. I was at a company called Pacific Advanced Media doing the production work, and I was also working with the Industry Association.
Wow.
So the networking, and I actually helped some of the university kind of collaborations with the industry because I was, across all of them. And to this day, if you ask me what one of the best things I could have done for my career was, it was understanding that networking was important.
I believe the term would be network is king. networking
Maybe we should say, no, what about networking is queen?
Oh,
yes.
Yes. Let's go with that. And Lib, where did photography fit into all of this? Harri, I think I cut you off then, didn't I?
Actually, may I say one more thing before we move on to photography, because it is totally related to the question about publishing. So what happened after Pacific Advanced Media, Aussie Mail and Web Wonders, I landed this role as the project manager for a new venture, the first venture into digital rights management for taking Australian authors and text publishing online.
Oh,
so how do you manage the digital rights? So there I was, smack bang in publishing, and that grew out of the company Pacific Advanced Media.
Wow.
So our role was to liaise with the authors and the Australian Society of Authors, another industry association, and help self-publishing authors to publish their works digitally.
Wow.
That brought me in touch with people like Carl Kruzhelnicki. I remember having lunch at what's the fabulous Japanese restaurant, Tetsuya's in Sydney, having lunch with Dr. Carl talking about publishing and content. And
oh, my goodness. It just sounds like you were such a go-getter. Like, did you just it sounds like, even hearing you talk, it sounds like you had a real love for everything you were doing and you were just grabbing opportunities and just going for it.
I did. I loved it. and I loved the people that I was working with, and I loved the creative projects that I worked on. The interesting thing is I've always worked with creatives, but I haven't necessarily been a creative practitioner in that process. I've been managing them and the content and the different elements, the text, the photography, the imagery, the videos and all the rest of it. But I loved storytelling. That was very obvious. So where storytelling meets education especially. Anyway, so I tell you that about the publishing, and Oz Authors was the name of the project. So who knew, like 10 years later, that I would be working, or we started our photo book business, Momento, and then I would end up working with photographers who wanted to self-publish. And part of my love of Momento was that it was so broad in scope in terms of the audience and the customers. But my personal passion was the area of photo book publishing and self-publishing.
So how did you kind of find, like, back to Sally's question, like, how did you find that love? Like you said, there's 10 years there, sort of, you've obviously done a world of things in that time. How did you and Jeff go quite specifically into photo book publishing?
Yeah, because
very specific
it
genre.
was, because you'd done music and all of this sort of thing. So when did that sort of become your thing? Or did photographers find you? Did some smart photographer go, hey, you've been doing this for authors?
We just loved photography. So I went to Canada in the I think it was 2002, and did some post-grad study there. And Jeff came to meet me, and we got our camper van, and Jeff rigged it up with all this technology, like hard disks that were the size of like a suitcase, basically. And we had our first digital camera, and it was a Sony, and I think it was 40 or 30 megapixels and crazy. And we would 33.
33? Oh, 3 megapixels.
No, sorry, only 3 megapixels.
You've given yourself a whole extra 27.
I know, because it sounded too low. So basically, Jeff and I had this camper van. He rigged it up with all the technology. We had our external hard disks, and we had our computers.
Nerds.
And then we had this 3 megapixel Sony camera that we adored. It was first generation. And every day on this trek on the west coast of Canada, we'd just go out photographing all day. And then at the end of the night, we'd get into the camper van and we'd have a little slideshow.
Oh, amazing.
You're kind of like spies, weren't you?
It didn't feel like it then, but that came into play later on future holidays. Yes, in Iran, if you must know. Yes, that was funny. So we just loved that process of observing, photographing, and the fascinating thing was looking at the photos afterwards. We realised that Jeff loves photographing landscapes and sceneries, no people, and I loved photographing people. And I think that actually says something about us and our role at Momento as well.
How they complement each other so well.
Definitely. So basically, after that trip, we were actually in Banff from the west coast of Canada, and we were like, this is so great, this travelling, photographing, watching, creating. How can we do this all the time and make some money? And at that stage, the only photo book producer that we knew of was Apple. And we had a photo book printed by them, and I must say we were very disappointed with the print quality. So we decided, why don't we start our own photo book company in Australia?
Wow.
Because everyone had these new cameras that could do different things, but we were still printing 6x4s as the default. So we thought, well, what about doing something more?
Such an entrepreneurial idea, just to go for it. That's amazing.
And how did you get the backing, Lib? Like, you came back and what did you then do?
Oh, there was no backing. It was all just blood, sweat and tears and, self-funded and trial and error. And it was lucky that because of our background and Jeff and James, partners in real life and at work, that we had the technology and the know-how to create the software. So our aim was we wanted to create software that anyone could use to design a photo book. It didn't matter if you were technically savvy or if you were creative. The software was going to be easy enough for you to figure out and lay out your photos in a beautiful book.
And there's nothing like, with entrepreneurship, there's nothing like seeing a hole in the market and doing your research and then going, well, hang on a minute, why don't we do this? And actually putting your money where your mouth is and getting on and doing it and having your certain, as you said before, specific roles. You knew what your aim was within the business and Jeff knew what his was and James his. And
yes.
And look what was created. What year are we talking, Lib?
2004, and it was very, very exciting. And to our knowledge, we were the second photo book company in the world after Apple, which meant we were first to market. And first to market is such a beautiful thing. And I distinctly remember going to the first ever photo expo trade show, PMA, that's what we called it. Remember, the Photo Marketing Association used to have massive trade show every year. And down at Darling Harbour in Sydney was the first one we went to. And I remember that understanding that we were creating ripples of disruption in the industry. Like there was a lot of excitement because everybody else had been there before and for years. We were brand new. We had this brand new product and there was a lot of excitement. And my role was, making the connections with the community and suppliers and customers and the industry and the photographers, of course. But it was just exciting to see everything take off. And I also was involved with the media and communications and the public relations side of things. And we got insane media coverage. Like we were on Sunrise, we were on Getaway, we were in all the photography magazines, we were in House and Garden and things like that. And that was beautiful. And that there was exponential growth in the early days. And then the thing that really changed was in America, the photo book industry was much more advanced than ours. And all of the trends and research showed that things should, go gangbusters in Australia, over the coming years. But what happened that was different and actually capped that growth was the introduction of the iPad.
Oh, interesting.
And it's really interesting to look back and see where did things change. And it was also the change, I feel, with a lot of the photography industry and potentially the start of the devaluation of professional photography skills and professional presentation.
Yes, couldn't agree more.
That's so interesting. So, the iPad and then phones becoming so proficient as well. Yeah.
And that was about 2008, 2009. And that's where we really started to see things change. And I feel from my perspective that maybe it was the wedding photography that I saw disappear first.
Oh.
That just from, all different kinds, but wedding photography was such an essential part, like a professional photographer was such an essential part of a wedding
and the albums
preparation.
And all of that came afterwards.
And the album was just a part of the package. It was never an add-on.
No.
And I remember over the next few years, or the next decade and beyond, being fascinated by this whole different approach that evolved where you got the kind of weekend wedding photographers who had their digital camera, who decided, I'm just going to give it a crack. And they shot friends' weddings, friends and families' weddings for nothing. And in most cases just kind of burnt a CD-ROM and handed it to them. So there was no printing involved. And of course that impacted the wedding industry and, you know, the way people approach photography. And then the album or the printing even became this add-on. And I remember some of the younger emerging photographers in the late, 2010s, mid to late, talking about charging for the printing almost like it was a dirty upsell. That mentality just fascinated me.
Yeah, so
and
interesting.
saddened me.
I remember when I first met you, I'd been designing portfolios for photographers and we were printing them all, and I was still very much, even though through the CD-ROM time and the floppy disk and the whole lot that was going on, it was like, yep, you can do that, but there's nothing finer than something that you can smell and turn and print. And so people were coming to me, and I remember I was actually at that Darling Harbour PMA. I actually did a talk there that year, bizarrely. And I remember seeing you and thinking, oh, who's that? Who's that bird over there? Anyway, I thought, oh, it's a new Sydney thing. Anyway, it was sometime later that people would say to me, do you know Libby? I can't believe you don't know Libby. How come you don't know Libby? So I made it my mission to meet you, and I think we ended up after lunch one day in a bar drinking vodka.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
Quite
How
unusual for me, day drinking. And we just talked our ears off, and I just sort of fell in love with you then and what you guys were doing. But it was quite a bit later that I found out about it. But then it was a wonderful thing for my photographers here in Melbourne, because I was sending them to you to print beautiful books for them.
Oh, I mean, that's you would send everyone
match
to Momento
made in heaven,
Pro.
Sal.
It was a match made in heaven, and it was amazing, and all the beautiful linen bound, and they were going, shouldn't they be digital? I said, you do both, but everybody wants this, and you can afford now to do one for every season or every year, and we just had that wonderful relationship and you were always so knowledgeable. I'm still reeling about your background because I actually didn't know all of that about you, but you were so knowledgeable in that time. And I remember, when I started writing my books, ringing you and going, well, talk to me about self-publishing and talk to me about, trying to get into bookstores and how do you do it? Like, you have so many different
strings to your bow.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Strings to your bow.
And speaking of strings to your bow, I think one of the amazing things about Momento Pro that you kind of have touched on a little bit is that you actually have different departments to the business, and it was very accessible for everyone. So you had an element where, serious wedding photographers could come and make beautiful albums. You had a department where, artists would come and make their unique photo books. And then you had an area where, the family could come at the end of the year and make their family photo book for Christmas as well. And so I think that accessibility thing that you talked about is just so important, that you were able to cater for such a wide range of the public.
And was that the difference between Momento and Momento Pro? Were the two names? Can you talk?
Yes. So Momento was first. Yeah. So Momento was first going direct to the consumer. So for the first few years, that was our only market because of course we were just evolving, and everything about Momento has been self-funded, the whole journey. And that's where the demand was initially. And actually, I think we were frowned upon initially by the professional photography industry because we weren't photo albums. Photo albums was the height of, printing in book form for professional photographers. And to be fair, that first generation of digital printers that had merged the best qualities of, say, big print production processes with the ability to personalise and the technology that allowed us to personalise books, the quality of those first generation of printers wasn't as good as photographic printing. There's no doubt about it. But over the years, things changed dramatically. And we were always about quality. In everything we've ever done, we want the best output that we could get.
Can you talk about
still, I believe...
Oh, sorry, I think we had a bit of a delay there, so I cut you off. Can you,
That's okay.
like talking about quality and output, can you talk about some of just examples of some amazing books that you might have published that stand out in your mind?
Totally. So very early in the piece, we worked with a lot of photojournalists, partially because, you know, another career path that I thought of for myself was documentary filmmaking, current affairs, I suppose, more documentary filmmaking, and photojournalism to me is just the photographic version of documentary filmmaking. And I often would refer to photo books as movies on paper. And so we worked with a lot of photojournalists. I went very early into, I met with a bunch of Fairfax journalists very early in the piece. And we did a few portfolios at that stage, but we also met Stephen DuPont. And I can't remember if he came to us or we went to him, but there was definitely mutual interest in what we were doing. And this was after Momento had evolved into Momento Pro in about 2006. I think we launched Momento Pro, working with professional photographers of all kinds, advertising, editorial, wedding, portraiture, you name it, and the photojournalists. So the next evolution of that was my personal interest in publishing and documentary. So when we met Stephen, it was a great collaboration. And he did some incredible books with us. One of the biggest books, I believe, was A1. Jeffrey?
No, it's about A2 Panorama.
A2 Panorama, Concertina of the tsunami in the Philippines, I believe.
Wow, yeah.
And it was 40 metres long.
Wow.
When you rolled it out, and Jeff printed it out of love in his Christmas holidays. And
Yay, Jeffrey.
Yeah, the enormity of this book in physical presence and size was supposed to reflect the enormity of the disaster that had happened. And that was amazing. But having said that, a concertina was not our normal book format, but we did in those days, we did a lot of experimentation, especially in the world of self-publishing, because what we quickly learned was we had this idea that we'd go out to market with, you know, some different packages around publishing in particular sizes. We never limited page numbers. A lot of other photo book companies had 10 to 20, 20 to 50, whatever. We never limited that. But we did have some set sizes and paper stocks and covers. What we quickly discovered, though, was that the people who are producing beautiful self-published photo books, artist books, they are artists. They are creatives. They want custom.
Yeah.
So that was a beautiful thing. It was complicated, though, and complex, because having to do everything bespoke doesn't give you economies of scale.
Yeah.
So a very expensive process, especially when everything is produced in-house in Sydney, and we have to learn how to create all these new products. So we spent a long time working with the self-publishing authors or photographers to create beautiful pieces. And yes, one of my favourite books was easily Libby Jeffrey's Interview with a Cockatoo or Two. And I distinctly remember we started our experimentation and foray into inkjet printing when Lila came to us. And we were the first photo book company in the world to start working with inkjet printing in book form. So having talked before about being slightly frowned upon by the professional photographers for the digital print quality that came in those first few years in the early to mid 2000s, the next generation of printers improved dramatically, and we took it upon ourselves to get the best output from those printers that you could get in terms of colour accuracy and presentation. And then we decided we would take it a step further, where nobody had been, which was basically where we were the whole time.
It seems like that's where you sit.
Yes, we were making it all up as we went. But the inkjet printing, we had to work with the paper mills to produce a rag, a cotton rag that could actually be printed on two sides. Because none of the cotton rag we first started using had only ever been used for exhibition print. And it's beautiful. And often people would ask us, oh, have you got Hahnemull paper?
Yeah, it was such a thing.
Yes, it was. However, because it's fibre, not wood, when you fold a beautiful piece of Hahnemull paper, you don't get a sharp crease.
Yeah.
So people wouldn't accept, they'd accept the beautiful printing, but not the kind of wonky creasing that it produced. So we had to work with the mills to come up with a new paper stock that was two-sided.
It's just
so
fascinating.
That's when it was exciting. Jeff was amazing, but Lila's book was at that time, and the book itself, if you ever get to see it, there's only about 25 copies in existence.
Wow.
And there's only five inkjet printed on cotton rag, of which I proudly have one. But it was a book that made me laugh, a photo book that made me laugh. And at that stage, because I've been working with a lot of photojournalists, a lot of the books weren't making me laugh. They were making me think and making me aware and making me or helping me learn, but not many were making me laugh, and Lila's made me laugh. And it was simple. It was so very simple, and simple is best. I can still tell you that classic, simple, one image per page, full bleed or near full bleed on the right, and maybe some text and what have you on the left or not.
I think that's a really important point, Lib. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there that work with designers, which are wonderful, and we all work with designers, but if it's a photo book, we don't want it over-designed. We don't need the design to be talking about the photos, and I agree. I love that, just that pure simplicity of photo books and the ones that you produced, and I have been fortunate enough to see that one. And I don't know whether it was yours. I can't remember where I saw it. Probably was. You were showing it off
I'd show as many
day.
people as I could.
Yeah, I think it was when I came to visit once. She just said, look at this, you know.
So this love, I've got to touch on it because it's something that I am very proud of, but this love for photo books obviously made you create the Australian New Zealand Photo Book Awards, which we as Photo Collective are the very proud custodians of as of 2021, and feel very honoured that we work together
what a journey,
on that.
Harri.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to talk a bit about why you created that and you know the place that had in the photography industry?
And my heart.
Yeah, and my heart.
I would like to, I'd just like to go back to just finish something interesting about Lila's book that is related specifically to photo book publishing and kind of an evolution in the Australian photographic industry.
Amazing.
It was very interesting that with Lila's book, which was that simple portrait shot of a cockatoo on the right-hand side, shot in classic portrait style, just the face of the bird. And on the left, she had just some text, but that text was so poignant and appropriate and unique for the photograph. So she had been inspired by a French movie where an actor was asked to sit in front of a camera and he was asked questions, and the only way he could respond was with gesture and eyes and facial expression. So Lila took that as the inspiration to work backwards. She had the photograph of the birds, and then she and her team kind of brainstormed, what is the question that bird would have been asked to get that great look on its face? And, you know, some of the questions, they went from, like, say, did you know that Ryan Gosling is not a goose? That was one. To, like, something about quantum theory. And, she just matched the image with the appropriate text, and that is an art in any photo book that decides to include text, because that's where a lot of photo books would fall apart is when they introduced text and the words themselves, but then the design, and we'll talk about that later because that was a big problem, I felt. But with that book in particular, Interview with a Cockatoo or Two, I loved it so much and I thought there must be so many people who want to see this. But it was interesting because Lila was a fine art photographer who sold her work in fine art galleries, and in that art collector's world, that she had to be very careful about how she approached a photo book because she couldn't sabotage her fine art prints with a lower value priced product. So when she did that we did the artist proofs, we made them inkjet print to keep them in the same kind of quality level as her artworks. But they're very expensive to produce, like hundreds of dollars, let alone sell. So at one of the first, I think it was the second ever Melbourne Art Book Fair, I happened to the Momento Pro stand was very close to the Thames and Hudson stand. And I'd been doing my research because I was promoting and educating people about this process of self-publishing. But as part of that, I also felt that I needed to connect them with publishers who were interested, Australian publishers who might be interested in publishing for them because it's an expensive process. If you can, however, do it as a self-funded project easily too. And I had been pitching it to a few different publishers for a while, and I spoke to the new issue. It was a very new role, Kirsten, whose last name I won't remember now. She was in a new role there that was specifically to help local regional artists publish rather than Thames and Hudson just bringing in art books and photo books from international artists. Anyway, we talked about it, but it wasn't until a year or so later that, so there was no interest immediately. So we went ahead and helped Lila produce a limited edition of 20 of her beautiful Interview with a Cockatoo or Two books. And there are some very lucky people in the world with those because they sold for $120, which was more or less than what they cost to produce, but Lila wanted them out there. A year or so later, Thames and Hudson came back to her, and then she did work on a project with them, and she, of course, also produced her own more popular published book with a well-known publisher, international publisher, whose name I can't remember now, but that sold gangbusters around the world. Very different to the version of her book that she produced as a fine art collector's edition. It wasn't just the cockatoos, it was a broad spectrum of birds, and there was a lot more text in it and storyline as well, and very different production values. But I wanted to tell you that story just because there was this whole evolution from artist book through to collector's edition in a small run through to content.
One project can have multiple iterations, and it doesn't sort of begin and end with one book or one exhibition or one project or one, iteration. It can change and adapt and grow.
And different designs and different production values and different price points because you're looking at a different audience. So it all has to be fit for purpose.
The other thing too, Lib, which is a really excellent demonstration of what you've just talked about, is both yourself and Lila having a very good business head and knowing who she was, where her market was, what she wanted, and that's something that we've seen over many, many years with photographers, not really understanding the business of promotion or the business of how to get there, get their name out there.
You nailed it, Sal. And promotion.
I think she showed very early on a very good understanding of the business of her work.
Yes,
which is
and
very inspiring.
I agree, and she totally understood the audience that she was very specific about who she targeted.
And she held on to that too, rather than selling herself and going, right, well, we'll do 4,000 copies and they're $50 each, And as you say now, all these years later, there's 25 incredibly lucky people in the world with these beautiful books. But
They're
let's
so
go back
beautiful.
to what Harri was saying, because you're not going to believe this. We're going to have to wind up very soon, and there's still so much more for us to talk about.
All right. Well, it's actually a nice segue from Lila and your comments, Sal, about knowing the industry. So I had to learn a lot about the art of photo book publishing myself. I didn't know all of this before I started. But what I did know is that there were beautiful photographers out there with fascinating photography and beautiful content, and they wanted to reach different audiences, international audiences, and I needed to figure out how to help them get there. Self-publishing is a very interesting process. It can be expensive, but it is also possible to do on a small budget. What I discovered was it was very hard to get a publishing deal in Australia. So I knew who the publishers were who were interested, and there were very few and generally very small. And I think, the most well-known industry example, of course, is Perimeter Books, Perimeter Publishing. I mean, they knew all there was to know. They knew the industry inside out. They knew what was happening internationally. And they knew who their best authors, creators would be.
Yeah.
So we worked with them quite a few times, and that was a beautiful thing. But self-publishing, as a self-publisher doing it yourself, was possible. I saw beautiful examples of books that were produced by self-publishers. The trick was know who your audience is and know how to get to them. And what I learned over the years was I worked with Possible, which was the Australian-founded crowdsourcing group.
Yeah.
And I learned, I have an analysis still online about crowdfunding for photo books over, say from 2010 to 2018. And what I discovered was that there was quite a number, like 50 to 100 of them that were produced. The average funding that they could get successfully of the projects that were funded via crowdsourcing or crowdfunding, the successful projects average was about $20,000, which was much more than I thought. And when I asked people, and you guys will know a lot more about this, but you could kind of equate that to the cost of an exhibition.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yet you would possibly end up with all of these big artworks framed that you couldn't get rid of, and it ended up possibly being a more expensive exercise, short-lived. The beauty of the photo book was it was a long-term proposition and could still be distributed years later. So this is where we met the world of photo book publishers who were interested in entering the Australian Photo Book of the Year Awards. And that was my passion. I thought there's all these people out there working on different projects, but there's no kind of concentration, or there's no central group or community that was advocating for the photo book specifically, not just photo prints and exhibitions. So that's why we started the Photo Book Awards. And I remember from the start involving students as much as practitioners, because I had that legacy myself of being a student and working with the community and meeting people who inspired you and educating you with practical advice that would allow you to get out there and sell. This is where portfolios come into it too. I wish somewhere along the way we'd kind of done a student portfolio competition, but maybe in the future. So that's where we decided to create the Photo Book of the Year Awards, so that we had a repository or a channel for bringing people together and also for promoting their works, and ultimately to give people the opportunity to win a prize of publishing their work. I loved
and what
the
a
Photo
wonderful
Book of the
legacy,
Awards.
and isn't it wonderful that Harri and Tom and Angus and you've all taken it all on board.
Yeah.
And it's going.
Absolutely.
It's still
We
going.
just did the 2026 shortlist judging on Friday, and we've got to do a little bit more of it, and then the main judging is in 10 days' time. and we're going to announce the winners at Mel in March. So it would have happened before this episode goes out. But yeah, it's amazing that we've kind of kept it going again. You know, it's as you know, it's hard to keep these things running. And we've
Harri,
worked
I take
really
my hat off
hard.
to you.
Yeah, we've worked really hard at making sure it's something
Every ring
that we
under her eye is
another photo book.
Another photo book.
No, but it's something that we are really, really passionate about and that we really think is important. And we're so happy that, you know, we've kept it going another year.
Harri, there was nobody else I was going to give my baby away to other than
that's beautiful.
there is absolutely nobody else other than you and Tom. And I think the reason we three here are chatting today is reflected in why I went to you and Sal, why we hit it off so well from the word go. And I think we've always been interested in the whole community and the education and the bringing together of different people to produce the ultimate creative project.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Liv. And the
Absolutely.
three of us, we love our industry. We love what we do, and we have really great vision as well. I think all three of us, you know, and we come together with ideas, and it's like, well, yeah, let's do it. Why can't we do this? And how can we help each other? And it's been such a huge support. You know, you have been such a huge support as you said that we have, and I think the three of us and beyond has. It's been a wonderful journey, and I hate to sort of start winding this up because there's so much more that we can converse about. But I want to know, Harri and I sort of were having a conversation before, and just for our listeners out there now, what is it what's important for a photographer to know? I'll start again. What's important for a photographer to know when they're thinking about self-publishing? What is it that they need to know, do you think? Some 5 points.
They need to know who their audience is because that can influence the way you present a subject or a topic. So you know your subject and topic, but you need to make sure that it works with the audience who you want to go to. And you need to use your understanding of what you want to achieve creatively with your understanding of how you're going to get that out to market. And is your aim just to distribute your photo book and your work to a broad audience, or is it to create this beautiful photographic legacy that will be kept in institutions for generations to come? Or in the case of, you know, whether it's an individual, mum, dad, student, professional, is this just something that is you expressing yourself and presenting your best work for you, only you? Because budget is another thing that comes into it.
Yes, it is.
But making everything fit for purpose.
But also what I love about your story too, and I think with what Harri and I do in our lives, is budget, well, certainly for me, it always comes last. It's like, have the idea and then how can we work around it and go backwards?
Correct.
And let's just not be limited by anything yet. Let's have the idea and then work it out from there.
Absolutely, and that's what I loved doing with artists who came to us who wanted to publish. And often they didn't know why they were publishing. They just thought it was good to have a book. But I needed to help them work through that. Like the format that would ultimately be their book was derived from all the things that they wanted to achieve creatively, economically, emotionally. It all had to make sense. And it could be done at different price points. But I agree, Sally, you need to know what the aim is of your book, and it can be so many different things, but that will guide your journey and keep coming back to that question, what is it that you want to achieve? And it can be done. I've seen so many beautiful books achieved and produced.
Harri,
So
do you have one last question? I feel like we can have one last question each, even though we're being wound up over here, Liv.
Well, I guess like I just want to touch, like, you've had a very big year or two, and you know, I think we are at the end of the episode, so we don't have to dwell on anything. But Momento has closed its doors. But what exciting things have you done since?
Well, I'm still doing creative work in a way, but I would like to say about the closing of Momento Pro, just a little bit to explain to people, because we had so many customers that became our good friends.
Yeah, it was such a solid community that you built over those 20 years.
Yes, which was very sad to say goodbye to, in addition to our beautiful business of 20 years. It was almost to the day, 20 years when we shut down. And I suppose what I'd like people to know is that we put so much effort into trying to keep it alive.
Yeah.
But there were a few things not in our favour, which really began with COVID.
Yeah.
And then the extended economic crisis. And when you're an Australian business, self-funded, trying to produce the best quality work possible, it's a very expensive exercise. And you guys know it. All these beautiful self-publishers we know, everybody knows that times are tough. I think we were just one of the businesses that kind of suffered earlier in the piece. So what I would like to say on that is that being resilient is an important thing.
Yeah.
But also it was an interesting time to figure out, gosh, what do I want to do beyond the life of Momento Pro? My world had been that whole community and doing things for other people to be creative. So I started getting a little bit more creative myself, and let's not overdo it, but I did a few artworks along the way.
Yes.
But I suppose I throw my creativity into my marketing that I do, and that's what I do now. I'm a marketing and events manager, believe it or not, for a hotel. In New South Wales. It's the Avoca Beach Hotel, but it's a multi-venue hospitality destination.
Yeah.
But still so much that I learned through Momento applies in my everyday, and especially in the terms of quality and photography.
Yeah. I was going to say, you're still working with photographers, just in a different way.
I am, but I did learn something very early on in the piece where I took over the role of social media producer, and I wasn't particularly happy with a photograph that was published by one of my other colleagues. And I thought, that really doesn't make it in the quality stakes, because I'd been seeing the most magnificent photography for 20 years, so my standards were extra high. I learned something. I made an error. I unpublished it and reposted it with the same text content but a different visual that I thought was more fitting. And yes, and you know, you have to learn. I learned that I still had hangovers. I was still applying the same concepts and level of quality that I had in my past life, in my new life. And that slightly offended my colleagues, surprise. But I managed to figure it out with them, because it was very early in the piece. And, you know, that was a part of Momento and communities everywhere. You have to know how to communicate with people. You have to take on the responsibility of your actions and you know, figure out a positive solution from that, which we did. And at the same time, I also raised the stakes in the quality content level.
Look at you.
Of course you did, as you have been doing your whole career.
As you have. And I've just had this wonderful idea, which is I'm an ideas girl, right? Let's be
Of course you are, Sal.
Really?
And a talker.
And a talker. Although I've been quite...
You've been good today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of...
Is that because the content's been so fascinating?
Yeah, it's
It
because
has.
you have not shut up. No, listen to this. I'm doing this on air. It's happening.
Oh, God.
Oh.
We are coming up to do a podcast at Avoca Beach Hotel. We will promote Avoca Beach Hotel, and we'll get Sydney photographers that you know, and you can produce and organise it all with us.
Isn't that fantastic, Sal? Because
What do
I
you
am
think?
now the conference manager.
We could do a whole talk about podcasting. Oh, hang on, it's all happening. It's here.
Absolutely. And
Here we
also,
go.
When Harri met Sally at Avoca Beach Hotel with
oh,
Libby.
Sally, I love you
What
for
about
so many reasons.
Is that look, I'm serious.
Yeah,
It's
I know you are.
genius.
Yeah.
It's genius.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
We'll
Yeah.
work on that. This guy's hand has just almost fallen off his body. He's been doing this for so long.
Rapid.
I just want to say one thing that I've taken out of this, apart from everything, is content is king and networking is queen.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're fabulous. And I want to comment on the beautiful Luke Austin picture of behind of Lake Eyre, because we had a lovely chat, and I think it's important for us to talk about that because that is divine. And we can't thank you enough, Lib. And my beautiful friend here, Harri, is going to sign off now.
Our beautiful friend.
Before the laptop is pushed down. But we will be there,
yes.
baby. We're coming to Avoca Beach.
You are
I love
fabulous.
it. And thank you, ladies, for your support of me and the industry as a whole.
And vice versa. Thank you for your support of us. And on behalf of the industry, if I may be so bold, thank you and Jeff for everything you've done.
Get Jeff in.
You are sorely...
Jeffrey, you need to make an appearance,
Come on,
please.
Jeffrey. You can
are
hide.
sorely missed.
They're thanking us on behalf of the industry.
Yeah. Harriet has taken on the role of
I've taken
being
on the industry
spokesperson for the industry. There he is.
But you are sorely missed and you are talked about often and...
In a good way.
You are mentioned
Great.
with the highest praise in the quality that you gave and delivered, but also in the fabulous people you are. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on When Harri Met Sally.
Thanks, guys.
It is my absolute pleasure.
And just start preparing our conference that we're going to be doing up there. We're very excited.
All right, I'll be in
like
touch.
Don't worry,
I'll be in
Jeff. We'll
touch.
fill you in later, darling. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Libby.
Should we namaste?
Namaste. Lots of yoga's been happening.
I know.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, darling.
We just want to thank all our fabulous crew that are working with us on Season 3 of When Harri Met Sally. Shaquille Raymond, back for Season 3. Couldn't do this without you.
God love him. I'm glad he keeps coming back. Ezra Williams, who's just started with us this year, who is working with us on filming, videoing, social media and all other things fabulous. And a huge thank you to Ash Wilson, who will be working alongside Ezra, editing all of the videos for YouTube. Thanks, Ash.
And Martin Stevens, Sally's wonderful husband, and also music extraordinaire, who's done our intros and outros for 3 seasons now. Thank you so much, Martin.
Yay, Martin. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, Ash Peters, we'd like to say thank you for supplying the artwork to put in the pod suite. It's made a huge difference. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.
Bye.